Welcome to Sports House Podcast, Mile High Talk Edition. I'm Chase House. The NFL 2021 season is almost upon us, and the Broncos still have no idea who the quarterback is. But I am here to make my Broncos 2021 schedule predictions, game by game, what I think the Broncos' record will be, win-loss, all that fun stuff. And I'm going to go game by game, the Broncos' best-case scenario, worst-case scenario, and my overall predictions of what I think it will be. And then also a general idea of where the AFC West standings will be in my mind. The Broncos' first preseason game is August 14th, which is Saturday, against the Minnesota Vikings. And the Broncos have 3 preseason games, and Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater are both expected to start one of them. As for the other one, I don't know what their plans are, but they are both supposed to start one game each and have the first team offense. This preseason is going to be huge because it decides the starting quarterback for the Broncos. And Vic Fangio already said that he expects Drew Lock to start a game and Teddy Bridgewater to start a preseason game. So these 3 preseason games are going to be critical and go a long way in deciding this quarterback battle. But as of now, nothing is really decided as far as the quarterback situation goes. But I, personally, believe that Drew Lock is going to win the starting quarterback battle. And I honestly, I don't think there's much of a chance that Teddy Bridgewater wins it. I know it's close right now, but I just feel pretty confident that Drew Lock's going to win this quarterback battle. So for this prediction, it's going to be if Drew Lock was the quarterback. And I can do another one about if Teddy Bridgewater wins the starting quarterback position, although, just spoiler alert, it will be pointless because he's not going to win. But if you guys do want that, you can comment and I will make that. But I'm just going to go straight down the regular season schedule. I have it right here. I'm going to go game by game, and what games I think are going to be losses, what their tough stretches are, and so forth. The Denver Broncos win total over-under was set at 8.5 for this season. And keep in mind, this is a 17-game schedule for the first time in the NFL's history. 8.5, which means if they had 8 wins, they would be 8-9. And these records sound so weird when you say them, because I'm so used to 16 games. 8-9 just sounds weird. So there's no 500 teams at the end of this season, which will be a first. You either have a winning record or a losing record. You're either 8-9 or 9-8. That's the closest you can get to 500. And if the Broncos are over 500, you would win your over in your total win bet. And just for one, I want to say this is like beyond disrespectful. I think the Denver Broncos are going to have the number 1 defense in the entire NFL this season. They are poised for a massive season. And Drew Lock, he doesn't have much. There's not a lot of people out there that believe in Drew Lock. I do, and I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong this season. There's a lot of hate, and everybody likes to say whatever they're going to say, talk all their trash. But last year was last year, and the fact that it was Drew Lock's second year, it was a COVID year, there's no mini camp, there was no preseason. That stuff matters to young quarterbacks. This offseason, he's been getting help from none other than Peyton Manning. And he's got Manning rooting for him, Manning helping him. He has an actual offseason to go to this year. I think he's going to make a big leap. I think he might be poised for a Josh Allen type year 2 to year 3 jump. And the Broncos are set up perfectly. And Drew Lock is set up now to have some success, minus the fact that I think his offensive coordinator is ass. Pat Shurmur is absolute garbage.
This guy's a load of barnacles.
But nonetheless, he's got a lot of offensive weapons. He's got, in my opinion, I think what will be the number one defense in the league, which is going to make his offense a lot easier. He's got receivers that can get open. He's got fast receivers. He's got multiple good running backs. Their line is finally getting better. Broncos have been plugging a lot of their holes. I think their biggest holes now are in their coaching tree. But player-wise, they have plugged a lot of their holes, most of their holes. The Denver Broncos have the 5th easiest schedule in the NFL, and that's why I think they are poised to win a lot more games than people are expecting them to. I believe they're a playoff team this year with the number one defense in the league. They have a lot of weapons offensively, a lot of young talent, and pair that with an elite defense, the Broncos are going to make some noise. With the 5th easiest schedule, tied for the 5th easiest, they are set up to have a good year this season. Looking at their schedule, the first 3 games are against poverty teams. I think they're going to start 3-0. So going game by game here, I have the schedule right here. Week 1 at New York Giants, who I think their win total was set at like 6. You know, the Giants, they're garbage.
What'd he say? Garbage?
Saquon Barkley's coming back, but they don't really have any weapons that aren't toddlers.
Mama.
Playing them week 1 is going to help. And the Giants, they have Saquon Barkley coming back, but they're still the Giants. Broncos, I think it's so disrespectful that the last I knew, I'm going to check. The last I knew, the Giants were favored in this game by 1. Oh, now it's the Broncos favored by 1. But, even then, by 1 point, oh my gosh. I'm taking the Broncos in the spread easily. I think the Broncos take care of business in MetLife, beat the Giants, and then week 2 and 3 are perfect for the Broncos schedule, and I'll tell you why. Week 2, they play the Jacksonville Jaguars at Jacksonville. And week 3, they play the New York Jets at home in Denver. Now, these are 2 quarterbacks. These are 2 teams that were horrible last year. And they are both having rookie quarterbacks this season. And if you want to play a rookie quarterback, you want to play them early in the schedule. I think the Broncos' elite defense is going to expose these young quarterbacks in these games. Now, Trevor Lawrence, I think he is the most polished quarterback I've seen coming out of the draft in a really long time. However, he's still a young quarterback, and the fact that the Broncos get to play him in week 2 favors them more than anything. The only better position that they could play them would be week 1. They get 2 rookie quarterbacks in the first 3 games. And the other quarterback is Daniel Jones on the Giants. So I expect the Broncos defense to feast for the first 3 weeks and give the offense extra possessions to score with their offensive weapons. And I think Drew Lock's going to be firing all over these teams. They're going to get the ball a lot. Defense is going to be taking the ball away early and often in these 3 games. I think the Broncos will start out 3-0. Then the schedule gets more challenging. They have a 4-game stretch right here, which is pretty challenging. They got the Baltimore Ravens at home in Denver, away at Pittsburgh, at home versus the Raiders, a divisional game, and then at Cleveland to take on the Browns. And I think the Browns are actually going to be a really good team this year. So when we go back to week 4, looking at the Ravens game, the Ravens and Steelers game. Now, I don't think the Steelers are going to be that great. I think they'll be around 8-9, 9-8. However, the Broncos get a loss here in one of these games. Either the Ravens, most likely the Ravens, or the Steelers. I don't think they're going to beat both of them. I do think it'll be probably they'll lose to Baltimore and they'll beat Pittsburgh. But I do see a scenario where they are at home. They could very well beat Baltimore. And then at Pittsburgh, they could win that game, but they could also lose that game. But I feel pretty confident saying after week 5, they will be 4-1 with a loss either to the Ravens or the Steelers. And then they play the Raiders. Now, I'm going to talk about the Broncos' best case scenario, their worst case scenario, and their prediction, both before and after the bye, and also overall. But I just want to start by saying I think the Broncos will sweep the Raiders this year in the division. That is my prediction. Now, I'll come back to that, and in my worst case, I will tell you a scenario where that doesn't happen. And this is for all these divisional games. So I'll come back and redo this. But for right now, I'm giving my prediction take, and I think they'll beat the Raiders. At Cleveland is a tough game. I do think that they'll probably lose this one. At Cleveland, I think the Browns are probably poised for 11 wins this year. And being in Cleveland, it's a Thursday night game. It's on a short week. They're a good team. I can see a loss right there. Then they go home and play the Washington football team, Custom Inc. And Washington's pretty much garbage as well. I think the Broncos will get a win there, as they should. And then they have 2 NFC East games right before their bye week. At Dallas, and then versus the Eagles. And once again, I think they split these. I think they're 1-1 out of these 2 games. Most likely the loss would come at Dallas, but the Broncos very well could beat the Cowboys in Dallas. That would not surprise me one bit. But I do think there also is a chance that they lose to the Eagles. But I think the chance that they lose both games is pretty slim. So I'm going to say they lose one game. For this purpose, we'll say the Cowboys. And so at their Week 11 bye, I expect the Broncos to be 7-3. Now, that is my prediction. Now, after their bye is crucial because they have 7 games after their bye, 5 of which are in the division. So after the bye, as I said, I think they'll sweep the Raiders in the division and then split with the Chargers and split with the Chiefs. So overall, I think they'll end up 4-2 in the division. So I'll say they beat the Chargers after the bye week at home. And then they go at Kansas City, and I think that one will be their L. I think they'll split with Kansas City. They'll win at home, lose on the road. So by this point, I believe they will be 8-3. And their next 2 games will be against the Detroit Lions and the Cincinnati Bengals, some more poverty teams. This is why I like the Broncos' chances this year. They have a lot of poverty teams on their schedule, according to last year. Now, a lot of these teams are going to look different. But nonetheless, I think the Broncos get 2 wins right here versus the Lions and the Bengals, both at home. So I believe the Broncos will be 10-3 after the Bengals game. Then their last 3 games are all divisional games at Las Vegas, at the LA Chargers, and at home versus the Chiefs to finish their schedule. So I'm going to say at Las Vegas, the Broncos handle their Raiders poverty ass, and at LA Chargers, I think that will be their L to the Chargers of the year. And then at home versus the Chiefs, I think they'll get it done and beat them once and lose to them once on the road. But this one's at home, so I think they'll finish the year off strong, week 17, or week 18, I guess. So overall, that leaves my prediction for the Broncos 12-5 for the season, which is more than good for a playoff team. And in fact, I looked at the Chiefs' schedule and the Chargers' schedule and roughly the Raiders, and I sort of ballparked predictions for each of those, and so I have a division standing of what I think it'll look like. And let me just say that the Broncos, if they finish 12-5, that may be good enough for the division title. Because I sketched this out. I think the Chiefs also finished 12-5. So I don't know who would hold the tiebreaker. Most likely the Chiefs. The division is the Chiefs to lose. If you have Mahomes, it's yours to lose, especially right now. I mean, this is the defending AFC champs, the two-time defending AFC champs. But I do think the Chiefs, I'm not going to go in depth to their schedule, but I do have my reasons why I think they'll be 12-5. Now, their schedule, they have the 11th hardest schedule. I wrote this all down, the AFC West right here. The Broncos, in terms of easiness, strength of schedule, the Broncos have the 5th easiest, the Chargers, the 15th easiest, the Raiders, the 25th easiest, or the 8th hardest, and the Chiefs, the 11th hardest, or the 21st easiest. So, the Chiefs are on the opposite side of the scale. The Broncos lucked out and have tied for the 5th easiest schedule in the NFL, while the Raiders, they are not set up for success at all. They are garbage, and to cap that off, they have the hardest schedule in the division, the 8th hardest in the NFL. They are doomed for failure. I think the Chiefs will be 12-5, Broncos 12-5. The Chargers, I think, will be around 10-7. They might win 11 games, might win 10. I think they're going to be pretty good with Justin Herbert, and they have the 15th easiest schedule. It's right around the middle, but I believe that there will be 3 teams that have double-digit wins in the AFC West this year, and then that leaves the Raiders. I believe they are left for dead in this division to get feasted on, mostly because I looked at their schedule as well, and it does look pretty brutal. But nonetheless, I do think they'll be 1-5 in the division. But they very well could win versus any team in the division. The AFC West, every year, anyone can lose to anybody. But I think the Raiders will be either 6-11, 7-10, or 8-9, somewhere around that 3-game range. I didn't look at their schedule like super in depth to give you a super ideal pinpoint prediction, but somewhere between 6 and 8 wins for the Raiders to sit there at the bottom of the division, like the bottom feeders they are. And the Chiefs, I think they'll go 4-2 in the division, as well as the Broncos.
Lemonade for sale. Lemonade. Lemonade for sale, $1. Lemonade for sale. Oh, customer.
Hey there, little buddy. Selling lemonade?
Yeah, fresh lemonade.
Ooh, how much?
$1.
Wow, $1, huh? Hold on. Let's see if I can find. Are you sure it's $1? That's pretty expensive. How about 50 cents?
No sales.
No sale. No. All right. Listen here, you stupid little moron. 50 cents is a good price for lemonade. Nobody's ever gonna spend $1 on your lemonade that looks like dish soap. Actually, give me that. Ew, it tastes like piss water. I want a refund. Give me 50 cents.
You never paid for it.
All right, listen here, you greedy little scum. I want my 50 cents, and I want it now.
Well, I don't have the 50 cents.
Hey, excuse me? Is there a problem here? Yeah, your booger-faced son is selling liquid poop disguised as lemonade, and he owes me 50 cents. He's being a real freaking prick about it. Now, you know what? I'm out of here. can't do that! Your lemonade stand sucks! This has been an ad for Dart Styrofoam Cups, the best styrofoam cups in town.
Worst case scenario, the Broncos are 8-9, which is right at the bottom of that win-loss at 8.5. Best case scenario, the Broncos, I think, are 14-3. Now, obviously, I don't think that's going to happen because my prediction, I think they're 12-5. But looking at this more in depth, if we look at it before their bye week, my prediction was they'll be 7-3. Worst case scenario, though, they are as low as 5-5 at their bye week. Best case scenario, they are 8-2. Now here's where these different games come in, or these numbers. I think the worst case scenario when they lose 5 games out of their first 10 is they lose to either one of these young quarterbacks in week 2 or week 3, Jacksonville or the New York Jets. And most likely, if it's one of them, it's the Jaguars and Tim Tebow catching a game-winning touchdown against the Broncos in the most dramatic fashion ever to give the Broncos a loss like they deserve for canning him. So they would lose one of those games in their worst-case scenario. So that's one loss. They'd lose to the Ravens. That's 2. They'd lose to... Now, I'm going to kind of skip the divisional games for now because I do think worst-case scenario, the Broncos split with the Raiders, split with the Chargers, and are swept by the Chiefs. That's their worst-case scenario. So I don't know whether their loss would be here or later, but they're sure as hell are not losing to the Raiders twice, even in their worst-case scenario. The only team that they will lose to twice in their worst-case scenario, as far as the division, would be the Kansas City Chiefs. So for divisional games, when I'm doing best-case and worst-case scenario, I'm kind of just going to skip over those, and then I'll fill them in later. So before the bye, they play the Raiders. I don't know if that'll be their loss or after. Their worst-case scenario, though, I think is losses to the Jaguars, the Ravens, the Browns, the Cowboys, and either the Eagles or their one loss against the Raiders. So worst-case scenario is before their bye, they're 5-5. And after their bye, my prediction was that they would be 5-2. Worst-case scenario, looking at their schedule after their bye, I believe is 3-4. And that's where, if you combine those worst-case scenarios, you get 8-9. And the best-case scenario after their bye, I think, is 6-1. And the one loss being to the Kansas City Chiefs, which I believe they'll lose at Kansas City. And their best-case scenario, they sweep the LA Chargers and beat the Raiders in Las Vegas, obviously, and split with Kansas City. I do think for sure they will have at least one loss to the Chiefs, even in my best-case scenario. So that would be their one loss. Chargers, they beat them. At Kansas City, they lose. Then they beat the Lions and Bengals at home, the Raiders and Chargers on the road, and then the Chiefs at home. They get that one. And they've, best case scenario, 6-1. Worst case scenario after the bye is they lose at the Chargers, which, by the way, worst case scenario, they ain't getting swept by the Chargers either. They're not getting swept by the Chargers or the Raiders. They could get swept by the Chiefs, though. All right, but anyway, worst case scenario, their 4 losses after their bye would be 1 to the Chargers, 2 to the Chiefs, and then the at Las Vegas game, 1 to the Raiders. But like I said, I think worst case scenario, they only lose 1 game to the Raiders that year. So if they lost the one before the bye, then I don't believe they'll lose this one. But nonetheless, there is a possibility that worst case scenario, their one loss to the Raiders comes after the bye, so is 3-4. So worst case scenario, the Broncos are 8-9 with this schedule. Now they did get lucky. I can't remember the last time that they started a season with an easy schedule. So I think the Broncos are poised for a surprise season, a playoff season. I think Drew Lock's going to turn a lot of heads, and I think the Broncos very well might win the AFC West. I think they're going to be right there. Now, I think the odds are more likely that the Chiefs win the AFC West. And so if I was a betting man, I probably wouldn't bet on the Broncos winning the division, but I would definitely bet on them making the playoffs. Or their over-under for their win total, which I think is a pretty safe bet. But just because the odds will be greater if you bet on them to make the playoffs because they're predicted to only have 8 wins, that's probably what I would do, is bet on the Broncos to make the playoffs rather than win the AFC West. Now, obviously, they're the same thing, but I think the Broncos get in as a wild card as well as the Chargers. I think the Chiefs probably win the division. Broncos and Chargers both get in as the wild cards. And the Broncos division is the toughest in football. Now, let me kind of pause right there. The NFC West is also very tough, and they might have around 4 solid teams to make the playoffs. So between them and the AFC West, these are the best divisions in football. And if it wasn't for the Raiders, I believe it'd be hands down the AFC West. Now, speaking about their division, since I was pretty confusing on that, explaining that, hopefully you guys understood for the most part of what I was trying to say. But in terms of their division, best case scenario, I think they go 5-1, with that one loss being to the Chiefs. Worst case scenario, they are 2-4 in the division, with splits against the Raiders and Chargers, and then they get swept by the Chiefs. My prediction is that they'll be 4-2, with splits with the Chargers and Chiefs, and they'll sweep the Raiders. Now, I think this is going to be crucial because I think the AFC West is going to be a tight run at the top. Because, like I said, the Chargers might have 11 wins as well. But I do predict them to get around. I did predict them to get 10, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had 11 wins. So it could be 12, 12, and 11 at the top of the AFC West. There could be 3 teams within a game. And in terms of strength of schedule, the Broncos have the easiest strength of schedule by far in the division. The next closest being the Chargers at 10 lower, 15th easiest. And that's why I think they're also poised to win more games than they're predicted. I think their win total was at 9.5. Yeah, 9.5. So I do think they'll beat that, but by just barely. I think they'll either be 10-7 or 11-6. The Broncos, I think, will smash theirs. They're predicted 8.5 is their total, which I have them up at 12 wins, so that's a pretty safe bet to me. The Raiders, I probably wouldn't touch it. Theirs is right around 7 wins, which is the median of what I thought. I thought they'd win either 6 to 8 games, so I probably wouldn't touch the Raiders. And the Chiefs, theirs was 12.5 wins, and I think they'll win 12 games, so I probably wouldn't touch that one either. Let's just go over these games that are not in the division for the Broncos' schedule. The Giants, the Jaguars, the Jets, all terrible teams last year. The Ravens, the Steelers, the Browns, and those 3 games right there are going to be their hardest non-divisional games. Not in that order, but I think Baltimore is going to be a tough game. Cleveland's going to be a super tough game, and also Dallas is going to be a tough game. Then they play Washington, Dallas, Philadelphia, Detroit, and Cincinnati. Like, that... I probably couldn't have picked a better a schedule for the Broncos. If there's a year they're going to make a run, it's going to be this season. They're poised for a breakout year this year. I'm saying. You can say I'm crazy, and you can call me a Lock stan. You can call me whatever you want. I think Lock is going to surprise a lot of people. I think the Broncos are going to surprise a lot of people, and I think they get double-digit wins and are a playoff team. I said what I said. Also, shout out to my little brother Isaac. Happy birthday, 18 years old. He's going to go play GTA in real life for his 18th birthday and experience jail and prison. I hear prison is great on opening day, so let me know how it goes. Maybe use one of your phone calls on me and tell me. Either that or get drafted. I guess just have a safe flight. But either way, man, I hope you have a great day. The next 20 years may be pretty rough, but today should be really fun. So go have fun. Hopefully you last a long time before you get 5 stars and experience your birthday present. But live and learn, I guess.